You are now listening to the all-new Shotgun Sports Podcast with your host, Justin Barker. We talk to shotgun shooters from all disciplines, world-class instructors, gun clubs, target setters, vendors, and industry-leading companies that fuel the sport. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, leave us a review, and connect with us on social media. You can also catch our episodes on shotgunsportsusa.com.
If you are looking to purchase Promatic traps, give Rick Hemingway a call. Rick is the largest Promatic dealer in the country and can handle all of your trap needs. His team can provide new and pre-owned units and service that is second to none. And they also have a huge rental fleet, so no job is too big or small. Not only does Rick set and design sporting clays courses, but he also offers turnkey services for skeet, trap, and 5-stand. Contact Rick today at backwoodsquailclub.com or call 843-546-1466. Fiocchi was founded in 1876 in Italy and has been producing high-quality ammunition ever since. In the 1950s, Fiocchi began importing ammunition into the United States, and by the 80s, the demand had grown and the facility was built in Ozark, Missouri. Fiocchi currently employs nearly 200 hardworking Americans to produce some of the highest quality shotshell and centerfire ammunition. Nearly 80% of Fiocchi brand products that are sold in the U.S. market are loaded in Ozark, Missouri, or in the new facility near Little Rock, Arkansas. Today on the show, we have Bryan Bornes from Fiocchi to talk about the company, give us some stats on ammunition in the U.S., the ammunition shortage, and to discuss their current acquisition, B&P. Okay, welcome to the show, Bryan. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. I'm glad I could have you on with us. And once again, I have my good buddy on the other end with us, Mr. Will Fennell, which is actually a sponsored Fiocchi shooter. So maybe he'll have a little input for us.
I'm a Fiocchi expert, man. I'm here to keep Bryan straight.
Okay.
He probably knows more about the ammo than I do.
Well, he sure talks good about it. I can tell you that.
Keep making them papers, baby. Keep making them papers.
I can't. I was looking on Fiocchi's website today and could not. I mean, when you click 12 gauge and whatever it was through the search, how many different loads they had. I mean, I just didn't know that there were that many loads. It just shotgun shells everywhere.
Fiocchi, fortunately, or unfortunately for our manufacturing crew, but we make a wide variety of speeds and payloads that probably came from the Italian heritage, so to speak, as the Europeans really started designing FITASC and sporting clay loads and stuff before the American manufacturers jumped on board. And with Fiocchi coming to the States, we have quite a few speeds and payloads that suit everybody's needs. And not trying to sound like a salesman, but we really do.
Yeah, that's for sure. Everyone listening needs to check that out. It's pretty unbelievable. But before we get into anything, Bryan, tell people who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Bryan Bornes. I am the Senior Sales Director for Fiocchi USA. I handle all of our sales reps across the country and work within the home office in Ozark, Missouri, and been in the industry for most of my life, honestly, since about 87. Yeah, I started shooting a shotgun at clay targets in 1987 and went to work at a gun club as a trapper in high school, and I never left it.
So do you shoot competitively?
I try to.
Okay.
This last year with COVID's been more of a challenge, but yeah, I shoot sporting clays now exclusively and have probably for the last, maybe 5, 6, 7 years. I don't really recall. I'm sorry, but yeah, I do. and I love it. I love to shoot a shotgun.
Yeah. Do any hunting?
I used to do a whole lot more, and I honestly haven't in the last couple of years.
Well, Fiocchi's a big topic, a big name in our sport. Let's dive into it. But I'd like to start with kind of the backstory of Fiocchi, the history of it. Can you go into that a little bit and just tell how it's progressed to where it is today?
Goodness, Fiocchi, Italy, started in actually our independence year, 1776 or 1876, the anniversary. I apologize. Has been making munitions of some sort since then, and making components for ammunition since then, and has honestly been one of the leaders in Italy and Europe. And then, of course, in '83, they decided to put a facility in the United States, and they purchased property in Missouri and started building a manufacturing facility and offices, and continued to grow since then. About mid-'80s, Fiocchi was a brand new name to the shotshell and centerfire market in the U.S., and quite small at that time, but they invested money and started importing product, and has grown since then.
Yeah. It's
At this point, all the Fiocchi shotgun shells we shoot here in the U.S. are manufactured here, correct?
Well, actually, that's a good point, Will, because most people don't know, they're just ignorant, but the manufacturing facility in Ozark, Missouri hires over 120 people, puts them to work every day. We produce 100% of the shot shells that are branded Fiocchi in the United States and are shot, be it target loads, hunting loads, dove loads. All of them are coming out of the facility in Ozark, Missouri. 85% of the centerfire product that's on the shelf is made in Missouri. We still import some loaded manufactured products from Italy because they have contracts with the European countries, as well as the Italian government or Italian police, etc. And they make 9mm, they make 45, they make 380, and they make a few others. But and we do import quite a bit of that from there because their efficiencies are better.
Go into a little bit of the manufacturing process, Bryan. What's involved with that? What all do you make? What all do you put together? You do everything in Ozark? We
do, I would say 90% in Ozark. The facility in Italy does produce some brass for the centerfire product. Excuse me, I'm sorry. And we do import that. The facility in Italy does produce 100% of the primers we use. And they produce and extrude plastic for the hulls. And so they prime them and assemble them and ship them over. And we bring them in by the container full. So all of the hulls are manufactured over there, but everything else is done here.
And it's still all Fiocchi stuff. It's
100% Fiocchi.
Going to tournaments, going to gun clubs. There's one shell that I can say I've always seen in nearly every one of them, and it is a Fiocchi. I don't know that I've been to one place that did not have a Fiocchi shotgun shell there. I can't say that for all the rest of the brands. Do you feel the same way, Will? It seems like every time you go somewhere, you see the Fiocchi brand.
Absolutely, and I think a big part of it is just obviously quality and availability, but it's that Fiocchi has got such, as we touched on a minute ago, such an incredibly deep product line related to sporting clays. Everything from lower cost shooting dynamics, kind of club load, 1 ounce lightweight stuff, to heavy, super white rhino, heavy duty ounce and eighths, to spreader loads, to paper hold loads, to FETAS specific loads, to Halise specific loads. They just got such a depth in the product line that like I was at a club the other day that's heavily involved with an imported product line. But over there, there was still a big pile of Fiocchi spreaders because they needed spreader shells, and that imported line didn't have them, you know?
Right.
So you're always going to find Fiocchi even at places that are trying to carry something else because they need the specialty items. And, you know, the quality and the price points are just hard to beat. It's just great stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, that being said, what would be an interesting topic of conversation, and Bryan, I don't know if you know this or not, but how many shotgun shells are sold in America? Do you have any idea about that?
In the United States, on average, 1.2 billion shot shells are sold annually.
Holy moly.
I mean, all right, so in America, 1.2 billion shot shells are sold every year.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Could you take just a scientific wild guess how many of that might be target shells?
Oh.
It wouldn't even be 10%.
I couldn't tell you target shells. Let's say recreational shells are probably almost half that.
But recreational includes hunting, right? No.
Well, recreational includes the guy that's shooting clay targets out of a hand thrower at home.
Okay.
The guy that's testing his new shotgun he just bought, and I should say honestly, and my apologies, the guy or gal. I would say probably half of that to 50% to 60% of that is target load shot shell, entry level shot shell, recreational, and unfortunately, I don't know the exact breakdown.
Gotcha. It's always a moving target number, I'm sure.
It is. It is.
So what out of the shotgun shells? Now we're talking about shotgun shells. Out of the shells that you sell, what is your most popular sold? I don't know if it's load or specific shell. Do you have any idea about that?
Well, I do, and of course, that's unfortunately in today's market, that's a loaded question.
Oh,
because self-defense rounds are selling 2-to-1 at the moment, and it's probably buckshot. But for the audience, for the sporting clays, our little Rhino 7.5 is the number one selling shell that we manufacture.
That's 1 ounce, 1,200, right? Is it 1,200 or 1,250?
1,250.
1,250. Okay.
And that's more popular than the shooting dynamics loads?
It is. It is.
Wow.
So as far as competitive shooters, now let me clarify that.
Right.
Okay. Don't get me wrong. Shooting dynamics is a what we classify in the industry as tier 1 load or an entry level load. Fiocchi does some things that are better than some of the other entry level loads, in my opinion. But the shooting dynamics, of course, do outsell. But the most popular by shooters, and everybody knows the nickname of it, is the Little Rhino. And
I would have sure thought shooting
1250 1 ounce.
I would have sure thought the shooting dynamics would have been the top one.
Well, volume-wise, it is. But it's amazing. And honestly, sometimes when I look at reports, it's amazing to me that Little Rhino, it's very well known, it's very well used, and very well respected. Okay,
so move on for a second. I asked you how many shotgun shells were sold in a year. Of the 1.2 billion you said, do you know how many of those are used for, say, dove hunting?
Ooh, that's a big number. I don't know the exact number, but I can tell you that over 200 million shot shells on average are consumed opening weekend of dove season just along the Gulf Coast.
200 million in basically the opening season? The opening day of the season?
I will say opening weekend.
God.
Justin, we're dove hunting in the wrong area.
Yeah, no wonder we don't have any birds over here.
We got to get invited on some dove shoots on the Gulf Coast, obviously. Holy Jesus!
Wow.
Well,
So,
I mean,
Bryan,
those are
the old saw that you always have heard as a shooter, that the reason target shells aren't as important to the to the shell companies is because they sell more shells on the opening day of dove season than they sell target shells all year. It's probably pretty close to right. And if you look at opening day all across the whole country, right?
Well, that's a valid point. I mean, that's a valid point. Don't get me wrong. Most dove shells, and the majority, are entry-level priced shot shells, and we're all in business. And target loads are entry-level priced. Ammunition manufacturers for years now. I'm going to say this off the cuff, and I'm not sure I should say this. In the late 80s, the average price for 25 brand new shot shells, now granted, there was only 3 or 4 options back then, was about $5 a box. For the last 30 years, guys, what's the average price? And
I was going to say between $5 and $6 a box is about the target number since I've been in the game, and I'm old. I've been in the game a long time.
Well, we had that.
All that we can get.
We had a European invasion in the United States where shell prices went down.
Yeah.
And, excuse me, I'm sorry. My only point with that is really simplistic. What was the price per gallon of gas in 1989 compared to 2020?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They have not gone up at the same ratio as other products. And so what's happened to manufacturing is the entry-level shot shell piece, most manufacturers are losing money on it when they make them. And I mean, that's just a fact. Now, there's a whole lot of questions to that answer. Okay. I'm not stating that that's 100% every year. Lead costs, plastic costs, petroleum costs, labor costs, all that comes involved. But, the average price for shot shells has not increased significantly over the last 35 years.
I guess when you look at it that way, you're right. I mean, it's minimal, really.
Yeah.
I mean, barring weird times like right now and, stuff like that, shortages and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, do we need
from
to
the
talk
manufacturer?
About weird? We're not going to talk about weird
We'll
times,
go weird in a minute. How about that?
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get into that weird topic in a minute. But
yeah.
That's those numbers are just crazy. I'm still thinking about the 200 million shot in a weekend. That's just nuts.
Well, I'll tell you this, Justin. From what I have studied over the years, about 10 to 15 years ago, just in the state of Texas, it was 180 million to 200 million shot shells fired opening weekend of dove season.
Just in Texas.
Wow. Just in Texas.
Wow, that's crazy.
Dove hunting is it involves so many demographics of shotgun shooters.
Oh yeah.
From the beginner that just got invited to the professional sporting clay shooter that knows how to shoot. Dove hunting is such a social gathering and fun that there is so many participants, which thank goodness there is. But, I grew up in Texas. I lived in Texas for 40 years of my 51 years of life. And dove opening weekend is so important. It is so important. It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah.
And it's, it's that way here in the Carolinas and Georgia too. I mean, it's all the way across. And, when you start really totaling up all those dove shoots on opening weekend, I guess it totals those kinds of numbers. But God, when you think about it in total, it's pretty damn terrifying.
It's a large volume.
What would be funny? What would be funny is to see how many were actually killed out of the 200 million that was shot.
Ooh.
It's probably a whole lot smaller number.
Oh yeah.
That's why I'm in business, bud. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense to anybody, because I hope and pray that everybody goes out and loves to shoot a shotgun, but how many of those shooters don't know how to shoot?
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that rudely. It's a learning process to learn how to shoot.
Yeah, and when they only go every opening day, they're not really going to learn, you know?
Exactly right.
I mean, I talked to a guy not long ago who said for the last couple of years, I mean, he's ready now to take lessons because for the last couple of years, he said he'd averaged just over one dove per box. And I told him that Fiocchi loves people like that.
I think I'd throw a rock at one and hit 1 out of 25.
He takes a flat in the dove field with him, you know, and doesn't get his limit.
That's crazy.
Well, you know, in Texas growing up, opening weekend, you know, dove hunting, it again, it was a social gathering, and it's about getting together, barbecuing, drinking beer, having fun, and thank goodness it happened.
Absolutely.
So
Fiocchi comes over, sets up a plant, starts manufacturing. How long ago did they get to the point where all the shells we sell here were made here? I mean, that's been some time, hasn't it?
It's been I don't know the exact date, Will. I apologize, but
it's been a while though.
20 to 25 years now. Yeah. I'll never forget the very first time I ever saw a Fiocchi shotgun shell. I had just started shooting sporting clays, and I was taking a lesson with my first lesson with Dan Carlisle, and I was shooting reloads, and I was shooting a 40-yard target, and I was kind of breaking it in half and then chipping it in 3 pieces, and you know, then missing 2 or 3 in a row, and then break it in half. And Dan reached in his pocket and pulled out, I'll never forget, a purple shotgun shell that said White Rhino on the side. White Rhino 7.5, and slid that thing in the bottom barrel of my gun. He said, "You'll break it good this time." And you know, luck would have it. I mean, I just center punched it and rolled smoke on it, and I've been fascinated with Fiocchi ever since. And it's amazing. It's amazing what quality shotgun shells will do.
Yeah.
And just getting exposed to Fiocchi just because of sporting clays, you know, 1995.
Well, you know, and so it's funny you say that, Will. In the early 2000s, no, excuse me, my apologies. Late 90s, I was involved. My father raised English Springer Spaniels for field trials, and I used to go shoot birds over the dogs, et cetera, and then I got invited to shoot English Springer field trials. And of course, when you go and it's a it's a tournament, but it's called a field trial and blah blah blah, and they provide ammo, and they provided purple Fiocchi ounce and a quarters, and I had never even seen the name in print, read the name, heard the name, nothing.
Didn't know how to pronounce it.
And I didn't know. I was probably saying
shotgun shell was silly, you know.
Exactly, but they made a name. There's not too many people that recall Fiocchi without going, "Oh, do you remember the purple one?"
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. And they work. I'm not just saying that. They work.
I found an old flat of purple White Rhinos and saved them for Carlisle next time he was here. And it was like so much memory, you know, so many memories came over and shot every damn one of them. But, and they shot great. But yeah, they were purple back in that day, Justin. I don't know if you've ever seen the purple ones, but when I first saw Fiocchi, it was lavender purple. I didn't know what to think when I first saw them, but they stood out. I mean, everybody knew what they were.
I honestly would like us to bring back the purple, but there's other people in the organization that look at me like I'm stupid.
So, Will, that's a good thing you just brought up, these old flats of shells that you're finding. You might need to start shooting those when the season rolls back around, because the shortage of ammunition right now is nuts. And
oh, Lord, he brought that up.
And trying to find it right now in the times that we're in isn't too easy. So, Bryan, I'm going to need you to tell me why.
Bryan used to have hair.
That ain't no lie.
Every time I talked to Bryan for the last few months, He sounds like he's just on the verge of just jumping off the building.
So how was how was this ammo shortage? Give me some insight.
How's it going?
Yeah.
Why did it start? What's causing it?
All right. Well, unfortunately, I don't want to say it's an ammo shortage. And yes, we could classify it as that, but the demand for ammunition in the United States at the moment is up over 400% compared to January of 2020. Okay?
Wow.
The demand for centerfire, of course, is worse than shotshell, but only by small percentages now. So you have this and my apologies, this is a long answer, okay? You have this multitude of factors, the domino effect. All these things came together at one time. You have manufacturing facilities within the United States, and then, of course, you have a substantial amount of volume that's imported from other countries. You have the COVID, you have demand, and all the manufacturers at the time the demand kicks off have a limited capacity of production. So they also have a limited supply of raw materials that they can get their hands on. So you have this perfect storm that started happening in the United States with the political climate early in 2020, the riots, COVID. People started buying. I mean, honestly, my gut is, and this is just a gut, I can't quote this statistic, but when the television started talking about defunding the police, you had a multitude, and according to NRA and according to NSSF, and I have not seen ATF's numbers, but we had 8 million brand new first-time gun buyers in the year 2020.
Wow.
That number is phenomenal. That number is huge. And keep in mind, they bought pistols, they bought rifles, they bought shotguns, they bought everything.
Can you put that into relation as far like years prior, Bryan?
You know, I've been in the business quite some time, and I can remember when in 2008 when Obama took office and we had a little bit of craze, and then of course we had Sandy Hook that happened December of 2013, and 2014 was the worst ammo craze I had seen by that time. The demand now is double that. I don't have the statistical numbers to really quote you on this, but the ammo demand going into the third and fourth quarter of 2020 is double what it was 2014 January 1.
And that was terrible. And back then, I remember that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Now, granted, you know, target shot shells weren't affected near as bad, but if you wanted anything centerfire pistol or centerfire rifle, you couldn't get your hands on it for months.
No, but I remember it affected target shells too, shotgun shells too. I mean, there was a spillover effect. It wasn't near as great, but I remember things being in short supply. But not like now.
Not like now. And you're correct, Will. I agree with you. You know, and I mean, I can give you, and maybe I shouldn't quote these numbers, but 2019, Fiocchi put in the market 106 million pieces of shotshell. 2020, 142 million pieces of shotshell. We loaded everything we could get our hands on, and we put it out to our client, and the demand hadn't stopped. And unfortunately, with the political ramifications or whatever we want to call them that are happening today, I don't think there's any improvement in sight. But to explain the shortage, manufacturers are set up and they can produce this much, and we forecast and we buy raw materials and we produce all we can. And Fiocchi is not near as big as some of the other old American companies in the U.S. They're not the biggest boy on the block. You have a company that was in the top 3 that went bankrupt. I'm not going to say their name, I think we all know who it is,
right,
which was a top 3 manufacturer and honestly a top 5 manufacturer globally as far as quantity and sales dollars, that filed bankruptcy again in 2020 and trimmed their manufacturing down to less than 25% of their normal annual output. And so with that company, whom is very well known in the clay target industry, they probably put, on average, almost 300 billion shot shells into the U.S. market. And probably less than a third of that went into the market in 2020.
yeah,
So when you're taking those kind of volume numbers, that manufacturer created a vacuum very quickly for the demand of just normal everyday clay target shooting and hunting, etc. So the other big 2 manufacturers, and then of course Fiocchi, all the clients reached out and are wanting more ammo to satisfy their demand. And it's just impossible. It's simply impossible to increase production that kind of volume. And to add to that, you had the Europeans supplying America, and I mean, I can name off multiple brands that are imported, and multiple brands that are imported just for shot shell, that couldn't get product on the water due to COVID, couldn't operate due to COVID. And so that volume diminished. Now, I don't have a number, but that volume did diminish. And of course, a couple of those are 100% clay target, Clever Mirage, Game Bore, Bornagi, there's a few others. Those factories closed down for days during 2020 due to COVID, unfortunately. And I'm not knocking that. I'm Fiocchi, Italy. I mean, you've seen on the news how bad Italy's been hit with COVID. Fortunately, I say we, but the factory in Italy didn't have to close much more than 14 days for the whole year. Well, maybe add a little bit of that for the Christmas holidays, but besides that, COVID caused major chaos in the supply chain for every manufacturer. And I mean, very simple day-to-day tasks that we all took for granted in, prior years, all of a sudden the import licensing department is closed because their employees have COVID. And I mean, just little things happened every day. And so it really just changed the landscape of being able to get raw materials on time, get raw materials produced into finished goods on time, and then out to the clients to service the consumer. It became a much more of a challenge in 2020 than I think any manufacturer could have ever imagined. And that's what was so totally different than the Obama craze. And I shouldn't say Obama craze, but when Sandy Hook happened and everybody thought, we're going to outlaw ammo and guns, etc.
So how would you ever pick up production? I mean, you just have to build another plant. Is that the answer to picking up production?
Well, you hear people say, why don't they just make more? But I mean, the equipment that loads these shotgun shells, it's not like it's off the shelf stuff.
Yeah.
It's just gotta
You don't go down to Walmart and buy a loading machine, or you don't go down to Walmart and buy a brass case manufacturing machine. Don't get me wrong. The biggest challenge for any business in the United States, of course, is employment. And you have employment that you're looking at a forecast. We believe we can achieve this. We can do this. We can do that. All of a sudden, hey, we can get them to work this much overtime. Just being honest, I mean, you can't work them to death.
Right.
And you can only increase your production so much based on employment, based on raw material deliveries. We literally used every primed hole we could get our hands on this year. I mean, without question. And when you jump from 106 million pieces to 142 million pieces, that's substantial. That is huge.
Sure it is.
And we were capable of doing that. And of course, don't get me wrong, within the organization, we're doing things to hire people, train people. You got to keep quality up. You got to, you don't just turn the machine up a notch and produce more. Again, Fiocchi is much smaller than a couple of the other guys that are still around, and as far as quantity, but we increased our output significantly in short notice. Granted, with the shortage, we call it, it's not seen as well on the consumer end as it is on my end.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Bryan, y'all were opening another facility, and it's not going to impact our shotshell manufacturing, but y'all are growing, right? You opened a new place in Arkansas?
No, Fiocchi, and that's one reason I did move to Fiocchi, and there's a lot of new people at Fiocchi. Corporate has some, big objectives, I'll say, and they've made some investments in future growth. And yes, we bought the facility that some people have seen on YouTube and videos. We bought a facility in Arkansas, which is a brass producing facility, and it will also house machines that produce centerfire pistol, and it will increase our centerfire pistol production by almost 100%. Wow. And I mean, that is the goal within another year. So, wow. And yes, you are correct, Will. It's 100% centerfire pistol, but that demand's crazy.
And a lot of one of the constant rumors I hear during lessons is, and I know the answer, but you can just spell it better. The reason there's no shotgun shells is because all the companies are just making all the 9mm and 223 they can. One doesn't affect the other, does it?
No, not really. Not really. No, it does not. And I mean, I'm just saying that for our manufacturing facility, no, it does not. I mean, we have a separate building with shotshell, another building with centerfire. It has no bearing on how much shotshell we produce. The employees are trained to produce shotshell. They're not cross-trained to produce centerfire. If we want to call it a shortage, the shortage is the raw materials, because the raw materials are being consumed so fast. And the United States, including ammunition manufacturing, and of course, Fiocchi's from Italy, has switched over the last 30 years to importing quite a few raw materials. And with the COVID, getting those materials has been more of a challenge than ever before.
Yep. Well, that's with just not even shotguns. That's with everything. Just getting the
that's
stuff.
That's everything.
Yeah, it's everything. I mean, you got some good news to go along with all this.
Fiocchi purchased Basheri and Pellegri, or B&P.
Whoa, say that again.
In October.
Hold on, say that one more time. What's the name of it?
Basheri and Pellegri.
Okay. There we go. I've always wanted to know how to say that.
Basheri and Pellegri in Italy is a very high quality shot shell manufacturer, but also Basheri and Pellegri is one of the largest shot shell wad manufacturers on the globe. They extrude and produce shot shell wads that many, many, many manufacturers use in their loading processes. And so it gave Fiocchi, not just Fiocchi USA, but Fiocchi Italy, Fiocchi UK, vertical integration, because, we purchased a substantial volume of their wad for many, many years. And there's many manufacturers that do.
I don't think I'm letting the secret out, slap me on the hand if I am, but a lot of the exacta load higher end Fiocchi target shells, you all use B&P wads, correct?
You are absolutely correct, and you will find a substantial percentage, and I hate to say a percentage, of European produced shotgun shells that use a B&P wad that is produced in Italy by the Basheri and Pellegri facility. They have the machinery, the technology, and the consistency for quality that a lot of other wad manufacturers have not been capable of achieving.
And I think a lot of that is also the design capability, right? I mean, they really got it figured out.
They spent more
design.
Yes, they spent more time on designing a wad that works than, honestly, probably 80% of the other wad manufacturers.
So what does this acquisition of B&P do for Fiocchi other than wads?
Well, it provides us some production capacity in Italy, and I'm talking on the business and the manufacturing side, because they have more capacity to be capable of producing than what they're selling. And they did not have the client network, the experience in the United States to move product, the distribution network, exactly, the client, the dealer network, the retail stores, etc., that Fiocchi has been capable of establishing since '83. So we will increase, of course. Well, let me say this first. We are not going to change the B&P shot shell product. Their designs, their formula for powder and the wad they use, etc., they really make a good product. I mean, they make a great product. I'm not sitting here trying to say, oh, it's better than Fiocchi. It's not that. There is some things that are, they use the Gordon hull, which is a unique hull to Basheri and Pellegri to reduce recoil. And nobody else has that. Nobody. Well, I shouldn't say that. They do sell it to another manufacturer in England.
But they sell it to them. It isn't that other company's, right? Yeah, it's licensed.
No.
Sold to them.
No, it is produced and sold to them.
And they can't sell that hull in the U.S. either.
No.
Right. But B&P can, correct?
So, yes, sir.
Right.
So we, we garnered this very high quality brand with the purchase. And again, I'm not trying to sound repetitive. We're not going to change their formula. We're not going to do anything. We may modify the line over time because unfortunately Europeans don't know what they just really don't know the American market, and the European market and the American market still are two different things. But we've got the B&P line, and we've got, I honestly don't know what quantity, but on ships on the water coming over, we will continue to let the Basheri and Pellegri facility in Italy produce those shot shells, and we will be able to distribute those shot shells, to our clientele and provide them to the shooters.
That's what I was just about to ask you. So your sales reps will be able to deliver B&P as well as Fiocchi.
You bet.
Okay.
You bet. Yes, sir.
Will it be like two different? Could it be on the same order, or will it really be sold as two totally different companies?
It will be sold as two different brands to start off. Yes.
Gotcha.
And it is two different brands. I mean, but purchasing the corporation and purchasing all the assets and everything, we will slowly over the next 3 to 5 years incorporate their technology with our technology and figure out what's better. But our plan right now is to keep B&P separate and let it continue its growth because, excuse me, I'm sorry. One thing Basheri and Pellegri Italy did do well, I think, is focus on the sporting clays market.
Absolutely.
And they went out and got some, powerful sponsored shooters to shoot the product. And I mean, I'm not going to name names, but if we talk about the people they have that we now have, there's some very respectable shooters on the team.
Sure.
And then the product works too. I mean, Fiocchi works great. Basheri and Pellegri works great. It's another option for the shooters. It costs more to produce. It costs more to purchase. And we will continue to sell it. And, I think, honestly, the assets out of B&P as far as the shot shells is the target loads and, of course, your upland game loads especially. You take that Gordon Hole and put 1.25 ounces in there at 1,400 feet per second, the recoil is significantly less than a typical 1.25 ounces if you go pheasant hunting.
So do you think Fiocchi will incorporate the Gordon Hole into some of their line as well, like the Super White Rhino?
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
Now, what happens in another year or two? Justin, I honestly can't answer that.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's been, of course, it's been talked back and forth. You bet. And the Gordon Hole is a very unique. It is a very unique product for shot shells. It's nobody else has the technology.
Can you explain a Gordon Hole to the people listening so that if they don't know what it is?
Well, you have to start on holes, you have two basic types. You have a compression formed hole, which is what the Big Red manufacturer and the Big Green manufacturer used for years. Great hole, very expensive to make in comparison to what they call a Reifenhauser hole, which is a straight wall that is extruded and cut.
Like a plastic
and then,
tube. Yeah.
It is, exactly. Your Reifenhauser holes for years have used what they call a plastic base wad. Excuse me, guys, I'm sorry. And the Gordon hole is a total different design where there is a plastic base wad assembly, and I'm going to try and explain it properly because, trust me, I'm still learning. That is one whole piece. And so when the ignition of the shot shell happens, you get, what's the old physics saying? With every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction.
Yep.
So typically, with a shot shell or a centerfire cartridge, you've got the explosion within the cartridge, and then you've got the same back pressure coming all the way back through the firearm. And that's a very simplistic view. But with that plastic design of the Gordon Hole, it actually compresses and then retracts.
It's like a chamber that folds up in there, kind of.
Kind of,
right?
Yeah. That's probably a, special way to explain it. And so it reduces a percentage of felt recoil. And there's never been anything else that operates in that manner in the shot shell world. And it works. I mean, wait, let me clarify that. From the shooters that have shot it significantly, don't get me wrong, I've shot maybe 2 boxes of it, okay? I can't tell you, 2 boxes, in my opinion, is not enough of a test. But I've talked to shooters that have been shooting it and shooters that have been shooting clays for years and a lot of volume. And they're going, oh, no. Bryan, there's a difference. I'm like, okay.
good.
And it's a technology that nobody else has.
It's definitely good stuff. I've shot it before, and I'm sure Will has too.
Yeah, it definitely kicks less for the given speed and payload.
Yes.
Than a conventional hull.
Well, I like that.
I mean, we're very pleased to have it. There's been some challenges with the takeover and stuff, and we will start servicing the BMP product out of our Ozark, Missouri facility as soon as next week.
They just need to get with their rep if they want some BMP, and they can bring it on the same truck.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got it. Absolutely. And don't get me wrong.
And, from operatively from the outside looking in, one of the things I always thought kind of held BMP back in the U.S. is they had fits and starts of, one importer, then another importer, then these guys selling it, and then those guys selling it. And it's always been a little topsy-turvy, a little here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing. And so now that they're going to be imported and distributed by somebody solid and established like Fiocchi, I think it'll just more reliably get out to American shooters than before.
I have to agree with you, Will. I think that's very fair to say because, again, it has been imported by multiple people. And unfortunately, and Will can probably attest to this, you get a lot of people that are not in the ammunition industry in the United States importing product from overseas and trying to move it through the channels. Fiocchi has relationships with the channels. Fiocchi is moving through distribution, moving through dealerships, moving through gun clubs. We now can take B&P that had the same challenge of being a new product in the U.S. and go to our client list, which is over, it's probably over 2,000 clients now, and say, look, here's the benefit of this, yada, yada, yada. Would you purchase it? And then, of course, the gun clubs have a warehouse that moves product daily in the ammunition market, and we will be stocking the product because, again, it will all still continue to be made in Italy. And we can move it to the gun clubs in a much more efficient manner because we're bringing in containers to fill up a warehouse instead of just, oh, okay, you want to order it? Well, we'll put it on the next container coming from Italy. All of that will take a little bit of time, but the distribution network of moving the product will improve significantly within the next 90 days.
Yep.
Well, good.
And that's the big hump that all these small importers always face, is getting to that point where you're big enough to where you got a warehouse full of ammo. You're not telling your clients, oh, it's on the water. Oh, there's another container coming, and I've just seen that over the years, and God bless all those guys that try, and some of them are doing better than others, and some have done considerably better than others, but when you can get that critical mass up to where you've got warehouses going on and shells and barring these shortages like right now, I mean, everybody's out of ammo right now, but
absolutely.
It'll get better fast. I think that's a great addition to the portfolio.
Yeah, Bryan, I was going to ask, do you know how many, in a normal time, do you know how many shot shells you have ready for distribution at any time?
I don't know that exact number. I apologize. I will tell you this. Prior to this year, and let's just say January of 2020, we had, and I apologize, I don't want to quote a number, but we had a substantial amount sitting in our warehouse because we do have and most manufacturers do, but we have a warehouse for just staging product ready to sell. Golly, I don't know the number, Justin. I'm sorry.
Was the warehouse full? I mean, it was stocked up, and you could just, if 20 people called, you could have all that stuff sent to them immediately.
We we fourth quarter of 2019 could service an order within 7 business days.
Yeah.
If that
I mean,
gives you
every
an
now and
idea.
then, if it was something super unique,
If it was
like
odd,
maybe
you bet.
Yeah, if you hadn't run spreaders in a while and there was a bunch of spreaders on the order, if it was paper cases, that's what I'm always thinking about. You only ran those every few times a year, kind of thing. But yeah,
you bet.
dynamics, boom.
Yeah.
You bet. Shooting dynamics or little rhinos or crushers, we could move them instantly fourth quarter of 2019. After the COVID and everything started taking off and the ammunition. And don't get me wrong. Hey, look, first quarter of 2020, COVID took off right at the end of January, and gun clubs shut down. Gun clubs canceled corporate events. It was scary. We didn't think, we were like, oh, our shot shell sales are going to, drop significantly. And then, of course, as the second quarter started, gun clubs opened up. And don't get me wrong, and I just kind of use this as a mental reference in my brain. This is not a statistic, but typically in the United States, south of the Mason-Dixon, they start shooting in January. North of the Mason-Dixon, it could be March, April. It depends on the weather. And when I say that, that's the majority of shooting. That doesn't mean tournaments aren't scheduled, but the majority of recreational shooting. So first quarter ends March 31st, and a lot of gun clubs are closed. We opened second quarter, and of course, a lot of them started opening, and they were capable of opening, not because necessarily they were considered essential, but because they proved to either their mayor or their local authorities that, hey, people are spread out. And of course, certain conservative areas realized, hey, wait, we're not shutting down everything. And so then, of course, shooting started again. By third quarter, clay target shooting was full swing. And tournaments had moved from first quarter and second quarter to third and fourth quarter. And it didn't matter if it was just sporting clays, which, Fiocchi has probably, for the most part, focused on sporting clays. That was the love of Fiocchi. And then you had the shortage of Remington, and it just all compounded, and tournaments continued. And thank goodness they did. And I hope and pray they continue first and second quarter and through 2021. But it was a weird year. It's hard to explain. I can remember sitting there looking at numbers of shot shell sales and going, oh, we're not going to sell what we estimated we would.
Right.
And it like the switch flipped overnight, didn't it? You went from sitting on stuff to ain't got no stuff.
You got it. And granted, February, March, we were sold out of centerfire pistol at the snap of a finger. And then all of a sudden we started looking at some client orders, and probably by end of second quarter, a normal distributor, let's say, that, stocked a little bit of target load shot shell, their orders tripled because they were selling out of everything. The European imports, there's a vacuum. I mean, I worked for another European manufacturer prior to coming to Fiocchi, and I know they've had major issues getting product in the United States. So it's been a challenging time. I mean, it's probably a lot more depth than I've explained, but it's been the United States ammunition market. The best way to explain it at the moment, it is total chaos.
And it's probably not going to get at least leveled out for maybe third quarter.
Will
now that's Will the sporting clay shooter talking, not Will the Fiocchi executive. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm licking my finger and sticking it up in the wind.
Our internal meetings, we don't believe, and honestly, even after sitting on conference calls today, we don't believe after the political unrest we don't think it's going to clear up this year.
The whole year?
The whole year.
Wow.
And let me add to that just 1 second. You have a major lack of supply at the moment through the distribution network. And please understand, the distribution network in the United States stocks millions, and I mean hundreds of millions of dollars worth of ammunition product to provide to the dealer network or the gun club network throughout the U.S. You have chain stores that have warehouses that are empty. You have manufacturers that have warehouses that are empty. It will take 9 months minimum to refill that supply chain if things went back to normal right now. It'll take 9 months minimum.
That's crazy.
I mean, I gave you some numbers on how many shot shells are sold. That's centerfire and shot shell, everything. It'll take 9 months to just stock the shells.
Sound like some of these boys better be shooting better during dove season this year.
Hey, unfortunately, you are correct.
You know?
So, I mean, that's just nuts. So basically everything y'all are making is already sold, right?
Yes, sir. I mean, everything we're making that comes off machines has an order against it.
Wow. Now, that just so everybody understands, that might be to a distributor that then goes to a dealer that somebody can still buy it. Some shooter can still buy it. But it means they don't really have the capability to take on new business for the manufacturer. Or if you do, you just got to wait longer.
For the foreseeable future, that's very fair to say. For the foreseeable future, it would be very hard pressed for us to take on a new client.
Wow!
Because our existing partners that we've partnered with throughout the United States have got enough orders on the books that everything we can produce is sold.
For pretty much the whole year, huh?
Well, we're not quite there for the whole year just yet, but I see it on the horizon.
Yeah. Unbelievable, man. That is unprecedented times, isn't it?
It's very unprecedented times, and it's such a challenge because, you know, I'm in the sales department, and as a salesman and my colleagues are salesmen, you know, we like to establish new relationships and build partnerships and do those things. And right now, we're having to tell people, I'm sorry, we can't provide you product.
You get out there on those loading machines, then.
Yeah.
Actually, I got so frustrated one day, I looked at the general manager and said, look, I can work on those machines on weekends. And he's like, I got people that know what they're doing working on weekends. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Let me get out there and make a flat real quick for one of my customers.
You might end up with some duplex and triplex loads, right?
Yeah.
You know.
A little bit of sixes, a little bit of nines.
Yeah. Just mix them all together.
It'll break the clay target.
Yeah. Well, hey, that's some good information. All this, that's interesting numbers, cool acquisition, and I guess some sad news if it ends up that way that we're not going to get shotgun shells till next year.
Well, I mean, it's sad, but it's also reassuring that they're making all they can make.
Right.
And you know, there are a lot of people out there that thought that the ammo manufacturers aren't making ammo. That's why they can't find it at Walmart. Well, I'm glad to know they're still making all the ammo they can make.
Yeah. Oh,
no,
yeah. You know,
it's being made and it's being consumed. And let's throw out that number again one more time: 8 million first-time gun buyers. If they go in and they've never bought a gun before and they buy a shotgun, be it pump shotgun, be it a side-by-side, whatever it may be, they will buy any ammo they can get their hands on to go out and shoot it.
Right.
And that consumption even is contributing to lack of the surplus of target loads at the gun club level, the dealer level, or the big chain store level.
Yeah. Same way with pistols and rifles and everything else. If you go buy a gun, you won't buy a box of ammo. I don't care who you are. You know?
Well, I mean, I hate to even make it worse, but talked to 2 or 3 people today, and with what's happened today in the political climate, there's multiple independent dealers that have reported to us. They've had clients come in and say, I'll buy whatever gun you have, whatever caliber it is, and whatever ammo you might be able to sell. And they are sold out. The demand is up 400%. There is no manufacturing facility of any finished good that can increase production enough to satisfy that demand increase.
Yeah.
And all of us ammunition manufacturers within the U.S. could not increase production enough to satisfy that kind of increase.
Yeah.
Mm.
Y'all get to work up there now. Come on now. Let's get going with it. Y'all need to be taking no more days off.
I hadn't had a day off in quite some time.
I'm sure you haven't. Yeah.
I bet not, bud.
Yeah.
He was, Bryan was shooting nationals with me, Justin, and he couldn't shoot just because the phone just dinging, just constantly dinging. And that was back last fall. I can't imagine what your phone's doing right now, bud.
He's on it right now, Will.
I know. I know, but he said he's still answering emails.
Yeah,
so I get it, buddy. I get it.
And I hadn't answered a phone call, Justin. Oh, no, it's unbelievable, and unfortunately, at the consumer level, they really don't know the whole story. And even at the buyer level, the gun club manager, the buyer at your mom and pop dealer, you get up to the large distributors in the U.S., they know what's going on, but they don't understand the whole picture. And, bless their heart, they think, oh, you're just not servicing the product. No, yes, I am. But in their mind, because the shelf is empty behind them and the consumer's looking at them going, where do I get ammo? They don't look at the numbers. And, it's such a challenge. It's hard for anybody that's not in the business day in and day out to understand how much 400%. And honestly, after this week, I think it's going to be a much higher percentage demand. Now, the question would be, can we quantify it and put a number on it? How much that type of increase does to the entire supply chain, from manufacturing to distribution to gun club to dealer to chain store. It's a whole different market at the moment.
Yep, that's for sure.
Well, buddy, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us all this time. Because I know you've been at it all day since early, and to spare some time for us on the podcast to get the word out to sporting clay shooters around the country it means a lot, and I appreciate it.
Yep.
You're very welcome.
Sure,
you're very welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Justin, thanks for what you're doing, man. Thanks for inviting me, and thanks for making this happen.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on. And we'll
all right, gentlemen.
I'll see you around.